Now, I have yet to make a video on Kengan Ashura's superior sequel, so not Kengan Omega, but Star Strike Bridge, taking place in the same universe as Kengan. And the thing I want to bring up is the discussion between Sena Riko versus Ichika Iori. The older of the Psycho Sisters, muscled like a bear against the dirty cop who originally brought her in. Both of them fought in the recent mini-tournament, Iori soundly beating Yukihara Sera and Riko beating Hazuki Yu. And even though I think the answer is more obvious than many, I still see debates about it. Now, for the stats, Riko stands at 184 centimeters tall and weighing at 83 kilograms, or 6 feet tall and 183 pounds. Iori, a great deal smaller, coming in at 171 centimeters and 60 kilograms, or 5'7" and 133 pounds. As for their fighting styles, Riko has won a bunch of judo contests, but that was purely from her brute strength, which is how she fights. He hit really hard, as she so expertly puts it. Iori fights similarly, but is generally more technical, as as learning how to fight comes with becoming a cop, especially one that was in the gang unit, which she was. Even though Iori doesn't fancy herself a fighter and doesn't really like it, she's still really strong. Both of them are described as monsters, and both praise the others, so it's fair to put them against each other. A noteworthy thing to bring up is how Riko is much bigger and stronger, and while yes, that's undeniably true, power isn't everything. Riko is without a doubt the physically strongest fighter in Strike It Rich so far, only Yu rivaling her. Iori likens Riko to an atomic bomb compared to her sisters being a machine gun, but Iori has shown an amazing endurance, not on the level of the heavyweights, but a clear bronze medal behind the two kaijus. So she took so many hits in her match and really only suffered fatigue, which makes sense since Sara hits above her weight class. And on top of that, she noted that she wouldn't catch Riko's riot shield puncturing punches head on. She knows what she can handle and what is just too much. So that by itself shows that she isn't some one-trick pony with only one method of approach. More than likely, she just assumed that the girl 4 inches shorter and 25 pounds lighter wouldn't hit quite as hard as she did. And although she didn't showcase it too well, Iori is more technical than you'd think. She decided to push her fist up and put pressure on Sara's diaphragm while also biting down on her throat, completely cutting off her airways, which I know isn't a lot, but it's still way more technique than Riko ever does, speaking just fairly. The other main argument that follows Riko's physical strength advantage is her durability and endurance compared to Ichika. How tough they both are, how much punishment they can tank, and many bring up how Ichika simply doesn't hit hard enough to do meaningful damage to Riko, as Riko can endure heavyweight used titanium dress boxing. But whenever I hear that, I just get this extreme feeling of deja vu to when so many were adamant that Julius was way too big and heavy for Agito to face him with his strikes, or continuing on, how people were also said that Kano wouldn't be able to KO Julius. But that was also wrong, because, he just threw a strong knee. Riko is not invincible. No fighter is. This has always been the case. Nicolas made that clear during his match with Akuyo, that even a middleweight's punches are enough to kill. Large differences in weight and physical power have not inhibited smaller fighters from dealing serious damage to huge ones before. Misasa, who is just 68 kilograms, yet his hits rocked Monkey, even though Yumi was over twice his weight. Lee, who herself is smaller than Iori, and a fraction of Riko's size, still messed her up a fair bit. because just the average Joe with bat principle rings true. Iori is just 23 kilograms lighter than Riko. Riko is 38% heavier. That's definitely a lot, like in the real world, but in Kengan, it's not nearly enough to invalidate strikes. Joroto versus Gaolang, Julius versus Agito, Monkey versus Misasa, Towa versus Oolong. All fights where the winner was far smaller than their opponent and considerably outmatched in physical power. Now, of course, there's a limit to it. Someone like Cosmo will tire before he can ever KO the likes of Waka. A clear limit is when we could see how Himuro was struggling with Hauru, which makes sense as he is over 4 times Himuro's weight, as well as like 2 feet taller. At that point, it's just a horrible mismatch. Now, of course, this does not mean that Riko's durability won't be a real hurdle. It simply means it's not enough to no-sell Iori's strikes, as some may think. As for speed, Sara's bombing raid is longer and better than Carnage Rush. Riko worked around it by slipping past it, but Ichika could just catch Sara in it. It's partially thanks to her endurance to just power through it, but she'd also just be fast enough to actually hit Sara in the first place and catch her. I mean, Yusaha was still able to dodge Riko's strikes after they connected, when she was completely in the zone and ready for them. And she was able to use her Hua Jin Chinese martial arts magic to lessen the impact of the hits, even though those caught her off guard. So Iori is fast enough to catch and ragdoll Sara, who herself is definitely faster than Riko by a wide margin. So coupled is still very good endurance with greater speed, as well as knowing she shouldn't try to tank any hits. I don't see how dodging would be a fruitless endeavor for her. She is also smaller and leaner. It would only really make sense that she is quicker after all. Iori isn't like a speedster character by any means, but definitely more so than Riko. And if we discuss their actual encounter, Iori only needed a metal pipe to equalize the 1v2 against both of the Sena sisters. Now, you could bring up the wording about how Riko says Iori beat the fuck out of them, which led to their arrest, but she didn't defeat them outright, to mean that they didn't actually lose. But to me, that would just be like straying far too much into headcanon territory. If Iori lost and the other cops arrested the injured sisters afterwards, that would need to be shown, in my opinion. And if it was like a stalemate before the reinforcements arrived, then that would need to be mentioned as well, but that's probably more likely. Better to just take the statement as it is, because Iori did say that together they're too much for her, indicating and clearly implying that she can take on either of them in a 1v1. The pipe was just there to equalize the 1v2. So basically, the slanderous approach to the matchup would be likening it to Ryan versus Sean and Willem. But to be honest, in my opinion, it's closer to like Ryan versus Julius, or if we're gonna liken it to a Kengan matchup. Iori wins, but not without some difficulty, of course. But that's my interpretation of it. So, thanks for watching, and peace out.